helping individuals to thrive in their communities by achieving positive living and employment outcomes. My name is Drew Andrews, and I am the Assistant Director and Technical Assistance Coordinator at the Florida Center for Students with Unique Abilities. This webinar is being recorded today. Our presenters today are Kent Carroll. Kent is a Senior Management Analyst with the Agency for Persons with Disabilities. He has experience with managing the agency's statewide transportation activities, served on local transportation disadvantaged coordinating boards, and advisor to the Commission for the Transportation Disadvantaged. Mr. Carroll provides training, technical assistance, and quality assurance reviews in crisis waiver enrollment, adult day training, and employment. Welcome, Kent. Also, today we have Jamie Mayerson. Following a 13-year career at Nova Southeastern University Mailman Siegel Center for Human Development, Jamie Mayerson joined the Florida Developmental Disabilities Council in October of 2020. She has 30+ years of experience consulting and volunteering with a variety of for-profit and not-for-profit organizations with a special interest in autism and childhood causes. She's the mother of 2 adult children. Jamie holds a Juris Doctorate and resides in Weston with her husband and favorite child, Augie the Golden Doodle. Some interesting information there. The objectives for today are for you to identify ways to enhance the independence, productivity, integration, and/or inclusion of FPCTP students. And also, participants will have insight into the projects funded by the Florida Developmental Disabilities Council and their outcomes. Handouts for today can be downloaded from the chat window, which can be accessed by clicking on the chat icon, which looks like a speech bubble, down at the bottom of the Zoom window. Closed captioning has also been activated and can be accessed through the closed captioning button on the bottom of your window. If you have difficulty hearing the presentation, phone numbers that can be used to call and join the audio via phone while following the slides online will also be posted in the chat window. And at this time, we'll begin our webinar. Kent?
Good afternoon. Can everyone hear me and see me?
Yes.
And also, do you see my screen, my presentation?
Yes.
Good.
Yes.
Well, good afternoon. I'm Kent Carroll. I'm a Senior Management Analyst with the Agency for Persons with Disabilities, and I'm delighted to have this opportunity to present to you information about our agency and the services we provide to support persons with developmental disabilities, helping them to live, learn, and work in their communities. During today's presentation, we will cover the application and eligibility determination process, the waiting list for participation in the iBudget Home and Community-Based Services Waiver, and we will look at two of our services that we offer: adult day training and supported employment, and also give you an overview of our current employment initiatives. Let me start by talking about the application and eligibility determination process in order to access our services. In order to be eligible for our agency services, an individual must have a attributable intellectual disability. And those disabilities are listed there on your screen. And all of these disabilities are intellectual disabilities, and they are listed in statute. Intellectual disability, a full scale IQ of 70 or below, cerebral palsy, autism, spina bifida, Down syndrome, Phelan-McDermott syndrome, and Prader-Willi syndrome. And these disabilities must manifest before the age of 18 and constitute a substantial handicap that can reasonably be expected to continue indefinitely. So the individuals who qualify for our programs are expected to remain in these categories. Otherwise, they would not be constituted as a developmental disability. And what we mean by a substantial handicap, it means a condition that substantially affects a person's ability to function physically, mentally, or socially as compared to generally accepted age-appropriate ethnic or cultural norms. In order to be eligible for our services, again, someone who's interested in applying must be at least 3 years of age, be a resident and domicile in the state of Florida, have a confirmed diagnosis of a developmental disability, and those disabilities are in rule and they are in statute, as I said earlier. And only participants who domicile in Florida are eligible, as I said earlier. Applicants who reside in another state, but whose legal guardians have established domicile in Florida may be accepted and processed while the applicant is in the process of transitioning to Florida. Individuals who receive waiver services in another state and move to Florida must apply for services from APD in the state of Florida and meet the eligibility criteria listed in a rule here in the state of Florida. And waiver services, unfortunately, do not transfer from one state to another. Proof of identity is required as part of the application process. The following items that are listed on your screen is the type of documentation that is usually submitted as proof of identity. Birth certificate, resident alien card, state driver's license or state issued ID with photo, a military dependence ID card, and the applicant's original Social Security card. And in some cases, an individual could use a US passport, a certificate of naturalization, a certificate of citizenship, or a school photo ID. This is typically for children under the age of 16 who may not have a driver's license ID. Anyone wishing to apply for services from APD can access our service application online, and you see the online address there on your screen. Applications are available in English, Spanish, and Haitian Creole. The application is divided in sections to be filled out by the applicant or their legal representative and the regional staff corresponding to the county where the applicant resides. So there's a section that must be filled out by the applicant and by our regional office. Anyone interested in applying for services should print the application and fill it out by hand, and the application will be available in the future for online submission in iConnect. And we're in the process of making the entire application process online. Unfortunately, we're not there yet. So as of now, the application has to be downloaded and printed from our website and filled out from there. An application may be accepted from a parent or a court-ordered guardian of a minor child, a legally competent adult, or an authorized legal representative. And examples of an authorized legal representative include a court-appointed guardian or an adult, medical proxies, as well as an individual authorized to make decisions under a durable power of attorney. And for applicants under 18 years of age, the person's legal representative must sign the application for APD services. And as I'm going through all of this, feel free to ask questions if you like. And if I'm talking too fast, tell me to slow down. Okay. Also, to apply for services from APD, it includes participation in our iBudget home and community-based waiver services. Or if a person chooses to, they can choose placement in an intermediate care facility for individuals with intellectual or developmental disabilities. Individuals have the choice at the time they are determined eligible for our program to be on the waiver and receive waiver services, or being an individual, being an intermediate care facility, ICFs as we call them. Okay. There are categories of wait list priorities. When an individual applies for services and are determined eligible, unfortunately, we do have a waiting list for services in the state of Florida. Right now, we're serving a total client population numbers about 57,000 individuals. About 22,000 of those individuals are on our waiting list, individuals who are waiting for services. Okay. And our waiting list priority are broken down into categories. The first waiting list category are those individuals who meet crisis criteria. And that would include individuals who are homeless, danger to self and others, or if their caregiver is in extreme duress and no longer able to provide care for that individual's health and safety needs. In situations where an individual is entirely or currently anticipates being homeless, there's not as much documentation and information needed, because those are extreme crisis situations. An individual is homeless, and we expedite those applications to make sure that individuals are no longer homeless. And there's category 2, and those are children from the child welfare system with an open case in DCF. Okay, and those individuals, they're transitioning out of the child welfare system, and after being adopted, reunited with their families, or permanently placed with a relative or non-relative guardian. Okay, also those individuals between the ages of 18 and 22 who will need both waiver services and extended foster care. And the third category within that category 2 would be those individuals who are 18 to 22 who withdrew consent to remain in extended foster care. So that second category for those individuals, those children rather, who are in the child welfare system. Category 3 is for individuals whose caregivers have a documented condition that is expected to render the caregiver unable to provide care within the next 12 months, and for whom a caregiver is required, but no alternative caregiver is available. Okay. And as we go through these criteria, as you can see, each situation as you go down the scale are less, or at least less urgent. Category 1 would be crisis, the most urgent situations and circumstances that individuals are in. Clients who are in category 3, those who are at substantial risk of incarceration or court commitment without supports. Also in that category are individuals whose documented behaviors or physical needs place them or their caregiver at risk of serious harm, and other supports are not currently available to alleviate the situation. APD clients who are identified as ready for discharge within the next year from a state mental health hospital or skilled nursing facility are also in category 3. And these individuals will require a caregiver, but for whom no caregiver is available at the time, or whose caregiver is unable to provide the care that is needed for that individual. Category 4 would include individuals whose caregivers are 70 years of age or older, and there are no alternative caregivers available. Category 5 would be those individuals who are expected to graduate within the next 12 months from secondary school and need support to obtain a meaningful day activity or maintain competitive employment, or need assistance to pursue accredited post-secondary education to which they have been accepted. And category 6 includes those individuals who are 21 years of age or older, who do not meet the criteria for the previous categories 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And our final category, category 7, would be those individuals who are under the age of 21 and who do not meet the criteria for categories 1, 2, 3, or 4. So those are our waiting list priority categories. And as I said earlier, category 1 would be the most extreme, the most urgent individuals. And many of those individuals at that level are in crisis. And then as you go down the category list, the situation is less urgent. But anyone who's applying for waiver services, I know those individuals all would say that their situation is urgent, and we do recognize that. I want to talk a little bit about our waiver services. The Florida Medicaid Developmental Disabilities I-Budget Home and Community Service Waiver. That's a mouthful, okay? And it provides, our program provides home and community-based supports and services to eligible persons with developmental disabilities to enable them to live at home or in a home-like setting. And the I-Budget waiver, as we call it, is funded by both federal and matching state dollars. There are a number of things that affect the level of funding that we have for our I-Budget waiver. First of all, the level of funding is affected by the level of funding that is available through the legislature. Also, our funding is affected by legislative requirements. Sometimes our program, the requirements for our program change, and we're able to accept more people into our program, and therefore funding is usually made more available to us, and increased funding by the legislature in those situations. Also, people who are in crisis, the number of people we anticipate in crisis, or the number of people that we currently know about who are in crisis, that also affects the level of funding that we receive from the legislature. And also the number of children in the child welfare system also affects the level of funding that we receive for our program. Individuals enrolled on the waiver should receive services that enable them to have a safe place to live, have a meaningful day activity, receive medically necessary medical and dental services, receive transportation required to access necessary waiver services. And when we talk about transportation, which is my area of expertise, I would say, we're talking about transportation to and from waiver services. You may have heard about our adult day training redesign, and let me just talk a little bit about that. We're in the midst of an adult day training redesign in order to come into compliance with the federal home and community-based setting rule. And this rule is coming from the feds, the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, CMS. And our agency, APD, must be in compliance with this settings rule by 2023. That's March of 2023, which is just a few months away. This mandate has gone out to all states. And what it really comes down to is that all states, if they're going to be receiving waiver funding, the services must be in community settings, and those settings must be in situations where individuals are in, if they're employed, they must be in situations where they are receiving competitive wages that are at minimum wage or above. Due to the onset of COVID, this federal mandate was put on hold, but now APD is rapidly approaching this deadline, which is March 2023, for all states to be in compliance with the final settings rule. And we are redesigning our ADT program to come into compliance with that federal mandate. And another reason for the mandate, for the redesign, is to create more pathways to employment for APD clients. Okay, and these changes that we're making, we're foreseeing and we anticipate that these changes will create more pathways for individuals, for all those individuals who are not just currently employed and are receiving employment services, but those individuals who express an interest in finding a job and wanting to work. So these changes are being implemented. We're going to talk a little bit more about those as I go further. Okay. Also, the purpose of the redesign is to provide increased access to the community and employment services for APD clients through activities that enhance independence, build community inclusion, expand the client's personal choices, provide opportunities for more social connections. And this can include opportunities for day trips and volunteering in the community and a host of other types of opportunities as well. I'm going to get more specific about what is changing in terms of our services. Okay. The three main services that are affected by this redesign is our adult day training, our support employment group services, and a new service that we have introduced or will be introducing called pre-vocational services, life skill development 4, as it's called. So adult day training services are being revised to include activities and training to assist individuals in developing and maintaining life skills that enable them to participate in community integrated settings, have meaningful activities. ADT, and this is the big change, ADT will no longer include volunteering or job training activities. And let me back up. It will include volunteering, but the volunteering cannot be employment or job related. Okay. So that is the big change in terms of adult day training. As right now, we have many ADTs that do provide employment and job training activities in ADT, but to be in compliance with the final settings rule, ADT has been unbundled and the employment piece has been taken out of that service, okay? The next change here I want to talk about is our new service, our pre-vocational service, life skill development 4, as we call it. And this service is being added as a service to provide pre-vocational training and work experiences on a time-limited basis, and that's 36 months. Pre-vocational services include volunteer work to develop general non-job task-specific skills, okay? In other words, these skills are not job-specific. Job-specific skills are skills that one would receive if they are receiving services through vocational rehab. And this new service is intended not to duplicate the more task or job-specific training skills that a person would receive in vocational rehab. So this new service is to develop general non-job task-specific skills, okay? And this service, as I said earlier, is time limited, and it is to help people transition from pre-vocational services into vocational rehabilitation and eventually obtain paid employment in competitive integrated community settings. And the distinction between these two services, the services that VR provide and our pre-vocational service, is that pre-vocational services, regardless of the settings, are delivered for the purposes of furthering habitation goals such as attendance, task completion, problem solving, interpersonal relations, safety, showing up to work on time, communicating with one's employer and coworkers. See, these are general non-job task specific skills that one would receive in this new service, this new pre-vocational service. Now, our next service, supported employment, that is the service it is known as our Life Skill Development 2 service, and it is phase 2. Vocational rehab is phase 1 because it is a service that a person receives prior to, in most cases, obtaining a job. But support employment is our phase 2 program, and it includes services for individuals who have already obtained employment and they need assistance with maintaining that employment. But also, we provide support employment for individuals who are in between jobs. Let's say a person has a job and then if for whatever reason they lose that job or they decide that they want a different job, we can provide support employment for those individuals during that transition period when they're going from one job to another. And one of the big changes in support employment group is when we are going to increase that group rate to match the adult day training rates. Heretofore or historically, support employment rates were less than our adult day training rates to incentivize more providers to provide this service. We are increasing the support employment group rates to match our adult day training rates. Okay. Let me talk a little bit more. I know I talked about it earlier, but I want to talk a little bit more about the new service. And this is one of the main features of our redesign. This pre-vocational service will help individuals learn and gain experiences and training before they transition traditionally into a vocational rehabilitation service. There's opportunity for volunteer work in this service. And as I said earlier, this new service is non-job task specific, okay? And these non-job task specific services, I talked a little bit about them previously, but these are types of skills and trainings that anyone would need, regardless of the type of work that they're interested in obtaining. And this service is 36 months. It is time limited, and it is to aid progression to competitive integrated employment. And we're hopefully this service will be a transition service for individuals who express an interest in wanting to work prior to them moving into vocational rehabilitation services. And we anticipate that the successful outcome of pre-vocational services would be an individual obtaining competitive integrated employment in a community for which the individual is compensated at or above minimum wage, and not less than the customary wage and level of benefits paid by an employer for the same or similar work performed by individuals without disabilities. And that's what we mean by competitive integrated employment. It is at or above minimum wage, and they're paid at a rate that is customary with a wage for an individual who, for all individuals at that same level of proficiency and work performed by that individual by individuals who do not have disabilities, okay? This new service we anticipate will enable individuals to attain the highest level of work in the most integrated setting. And we're hoping that individuals who come out of this new service and eventually go into vocational rehabilitation and obtain employment, that they will find jobs that match their interests, their strengths and priorities, their abilities and capabilities, okay? Some more information about Life Skill Development 4. This service must be provided in accordance with a formal implementation plan, a person-centered implementation plan. All of our clients have what we call an implementation plan, and that implementation plan is a plan that is put together by that person's support coordinator with input from that individual and any other person that client wants to have some input into that implementation plan process. And that implementation plan must be person-centered. It must be geared to the needs, to the desires, the outcomes that that person and the goals that that person has indicated that they're interested in, okay? This pre-vocational service is staffed at the same staffing ratios as the adult day training. And those staffing ratios are 1-to-1, 1-to-3, 1-to-5, and 1-to-6 to 10, okay? Individuals in this new service have to be 22 years or older. And as I said earlier, this new service will help clients transition to vocational rehabilitation. What you see, yes, go ahead. Somebody had a question? Okay. What you see on your screen is a possible service progression.
Kent, there
Yes.
are a couple of questions if you'd like for us to work on a couple of questions here for a few minutes.
Sure.
Okay. What support can APD or other community partners offer to individuals with disabilities and their families who may need assistance with completing the APD application?
Okay, that's a good question. If you need assistance to complete the application, you can go to our website and contact the regional office where you live and call that number. And there are a number of people there in the region who can and will assist you with completing that that application. At the end of my presentation, there's another link and there's another in the website. There's also given and a number that you can call also if you need information over the phone, would like information over the phone on how to fill out an application.
Okay. Thank you. Is there a place to find in-depth descriptions of the services? I mean, you've given a lot of description, but is there a place to find those in-depth descriptions of these services? That's another question.
Yes, you can access our APD iBudget handbook on our website. If you go to our website and you at the top of the main page, if you click on services, and there will be a drop-down link there, a drop-down box there, and you can access our iBudget waiver handbook. And in that handbook, you'll see a list of all of our services and a description of all of those services.
Choose which drop-down did you say again, Kent?
Okay, hold just a second here. Let me make sure I'm giving you the right information here. Or you can go to, as we all do nowadays, you can go to Google and type in iBudget waiver handbook, and that's a quicker way to access the handbook. If you go to Google and type in iBudget waiver handbook, and you will have access, you can gain access to the iBudget handbook that way. I'm looking at our website here. If you go to our website and you click on where it says customers, and you'll get a drop-down box, and you click on services, and you see a list of all the services there. Okay. And then at the bottom of that list, there's another link that says click here if you want more information about the services. And when you click on that link, it'll take you directly to a page where you can have access to the iBudget handbook. I know that's a longer way to get there, but the shortest way, to get there is just go to Google and type in iBudget waiver handbook.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
Thank you. Then, how will the redesign impact the employment enhancement project?
That's a good question. The employment enhancement project is a program that we have to help individuals find employment who are on our waiting list. Now, those individuals who are on our waiver, there's another track that they're on that we use to help those individuals gain employment. But for individuals who are on the waiting list, we have a program or a project called EEP, our Employment Enhancement Project. Individuals on our waiting list who would like to work, express interest in finding a job, those individuals are interviewed by our employment liaisons in our regions, and those individuals are either at that point referred to vocational rehab. If vocational rehab is not a good match for those individuals are enrolled in our EEP program, and our EE program liaison will help that individual match them up with an employment coach, help them find a job. And once that individual finds a job, then the job coach can help that individual, provide service for the individual so the individual can maintain employment. We've had a great deal of success in our EEP program over the last 3 or 4 years. We've helped a lot of individuals who are on our waiting list and who are not receiving currently waiver services, but they want to work. And last year, the legislature not only funded the EEP program, but they gave us recurring funding so that we won't have to worry about whether or not the funding is going to be there every year. So, but the legislature is going to be giving us recurring funding for this particular program.
That's great.
Mhm.
And is registration open for new vendors?
There's right now, and I don't want to, last I heard, all of the regions are accepting applications for new providers. Okay. There's no moratorium on providers. Anyone who's interested in providing services, becoming a vendor or a provider, can apply to become a provider. And once a company or an individual is past the eligibility requirements and through Medicaid, becoming a Medicaid vendor and becoming an APD waiver provider, as you know, those individuals, companies or providers have to be selected by the client to choose them to provide those services. And I just want to mention that it's a lot of times when providers become enrolled, we have to remind them that you don't automatically start working and start providing services. The individuals have to choose you through their support coordinator to use you for their services. But anyone interested in becoming a provider can apply, and there's a application process on our website for individuals or companies who wish to become a provider.
Thank you. Thank you. Can someone over age 22 get this new life skills level pre-vocational services even if they are still on the wait list?
Life skill development for the pre-vocational service is for individuals who are on the waiver only. Okay, that is a waiver service.
Thank you. Thank you. Do you have suggestions for families who have been denied for services, even after providing all documentation for at least 2 of the eligibility areas? Is there a more extensive explanation of how eligibility is determined to help the families and school officials understand?
Whenever there's a denial of services or denial of eligibility for services, individuals can always request a fair hearing. We have a fair hearing process, and individuals can access that, and it'll go through the hearings process. And if individuals receive a positive outcome from that hearing, and that happens many times, and then they can begin receiving services that way. But the criteria for our services are set in statute and in rule, okay? And unless those statutes and rules change, we cannot, we can't determine, we don't determine who's eligible and who isn't eligible, okay?
Okay.
So let me just say it that way.
I think that we've covered the questions. If you'd like to go ahead and move forward. And I do want to tell folks that we do have, remind everyone that we are recording the webinar today. And so even though we may go over an hour, you'll be able to receive a link to YouTube for this webinar if you have to leave at the 1 hour mark. But this is great information. And so Kent, please continue. And then we're going to hear from Jamie next.
Okay. On your screen, you're looking at a possible service progression here. LSD3, our adult day training service, an individual can receive those services. And as I said earlier, adult day training will no longer, as of March 2023, have volunteer work that is related to training or employment. Okay. An individual can receive that service and then transition to our new service, pre-vocational services, and receive non-job task specific skills training. And successful completion of that service, which is time limited to 36 months, an individual can move now into vocational rehabilitation services, or as it's called, phase 1. Now, the 36 months, the individual doesn't have to stay in the service for the entire 36 months. And they can receive the service intermittently. They can receive the service for a while and then stop and then go back to the service. But the entire time in pre-vocational cannot exceed 36 months. And individuals can receive the pre-vocational service and adult day training at the same time, but they can't do it in the same setting. You know, when I say at the same time, as an example, they can receive ADT maybe on one day a week or how many days a week, and then pre-vocational services on another day of the week. Okay. And once an individual moves through vocational rehabilitation phase 1 and hopefully find employment, then they can come back to APD and receive supported employment phase 2, as we call it. Okay. So this is a possible service progression from ADT, Life Skill 3, all the way to support employment phase 2. And excuse me. All right. When an individual is in vocational rehab, usually they're in there for a period of time. Once a client achieves what is called job stabilization in VR, meaning that the client has achieved their highest expected level of independence on the job for a period of 90 days. And once they achieve what is called job stabilization, then the individual can move on to APD and receive support employment services. And as I said earlier, when I talked about support employment, it is to help individual develop job sustaining skills once they obtain employment. And an individual, as I said earlier, can receive support employment when they are transitioning between jobs. If, for instance, someone wants to pursue another job, or for whatever reason, they are no longer employed and they don't have to go back to vocational rehab, certainly don't have to go back to pre-vocational services. They can continue to receive our support employment services phase 2. Any more questions that you may have? This is the end of my presentation here. Any additional questions?
Participants, please feel free to unmute yourself, and that can be done by going to the bottom of the Zoom window. Over to your left side, there'll be a microphone, and you can just click on there and unmute yourself to ask a question, or you can type it in the chat box, and I'll be happy to read it out. So let me know.
While you're doing that, just want to mention that you can send additional questions. If you can think of a question, after the webinar, you can send additional questions to our ADT initiative at apdcares.org on the screen there. On our website, we have a list of frequently asked questions. You can go to our website there. You can see the web address there on the screen. And we have a list of frequently asked questions, and we have them grouped in categories so that you can navigate through those questions easily.
We have a question here.
Okay.
What's the best way to get in contact with support coordinator for new providers?
If you are, I would say contact the APD regional office. They have a list of all the support coordinators in their region. And you can gain information or contact information from the regional office. That way, if you want to contact a support coordinator.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Anyone else? Feel free to unmute yourself. Well, we want to thank you so much for joining us today, Kent, and sharing this very valuable info and very thorough. Thank you.
Drew, I had a question.
Okay.
What could students in Florida post-secondary comprehensive transition programs that are on the iBudget use the funds from the iBudget to assist them in their program? Could they use the funds for transportation or for technology?
In terms of transportation, we provide transportation as a waiver service, and that transportation is to and from waiver services. So for instance, if an individual needs transportation from their home to their ADT or to their pre-vocational services, or they have a job and they're receiving support employment services at their job, the waiver provides transportation to and from waiver services.
So could the waiver services be that post-secondary education that program that they're in?
The service would have to be a waiver service, and the provider of the service would have to be a enrolled waiver provider. I hope I'm answering your question. We have an array of services that we provide, and we have providers providing those services to our clients. In order for an individual who's on our waiver to use waiver funding for any service, that service would have to be among the service array that we offer, and the provider would have to be enrolled in our waiver system as a waiver provider in order to provide that service.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions that someone might have? Okay, well, I think we've covered all the questions. Kent, thank you so much for joining us today. And thanks to everyone. We're going to be putting an evaluation link into the chat window, and the decision has been made that we're going to have a second webinar and have the information from the Florida Developmental Disabilities Council and Jamie Mayerson as another one of our monthly, because they've got lots of great information also. And we realize that we're getting very near our hour. So please bear with us on that change. But of course, we'll be sending out information on all of our upcoming informational webinars. And so as soon as that one can be rescheduled, you'll receive information on that. And so if you look in the chat window, there is a message from Claudia Bellapunto that will be your link to the evaluation. We will also be sending out an email with a link to the evaluation, as well as a link to this recording, which will be housed on our YouTube channel, which can be found at YouTube. Simply search Florida Center for Students with Unique Abilities, and you'll see all of our past informational webinars. And there is a wealth of information at that site. Are there any questions before we end the webinar today? Thank you all for joining us today. And Kent, especially, thank you for this very valuable information that you have shared. We appreciate it so much. And thanks to all that APD is doing and the services that are being provided. Thank you all for joining us today. And remember, you can visit our website at fcsua.org for any questions. And I wish you all happy holidays, and we will see you in January for our next informational webinar.